So the sermon this morning is called, So the People Worked with All of Their Heart. And that's out of Nehemiah 4. Just to bring a little context, we've been in Nehemiah talking about building the walls of family, rebuilding the walls of family. And Nehemiah, his lament was, we see that in chapter 1, was Jerusalem is in disrepair. The walls have been torn down. The gates have been burned. That was his lament. And I want to talk about walls a little bit. What do the walls resemble to Nehemiah? The walls were more than just walls. They were the identity of a community. They were identity of a people group. And what it meant for those walls to be in disrepair was the whole context of family and community was not recognized, was not established. Previous to Nehemiah bringing up the walls, Ezra had just completed the temple. The temple to the Jewish people was the very place that all the families and communities gathered to fellowship with God. They literally built their houses around the temple. The temple was the center. And that context, it facilitated all of their relationships, everything that they received out of life and community and fellowship and relationships was there. Their identity was so rooted in the temple and that community that defined who they were. So without walls around it, to us, we're thinking walls. Well, walls are bad. It stops people from coming in, this and that. Actually, walls gave them the structure and establishment to be able to include people because it gave them something to include people in. So that's what the walls meant to them. And similarly, family is the structure and establishment God designed, taken after his very image, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, as the mode of transportation to manifest his love. It's the context that enables us to have something to be able to include people in. Family was always meant to be arms open. In fact, in Revelation 22, there's a picture of God's kingdom, God's family, his city, and it says the gates are always open. They never close them. They're always open. That's family. Our family, the gates are arms, our gates, they're always open for inclusion. A lot of people here and around us have been so hurt by their experience with family because their families they've experienced exclusion. Instead of their family being open to people's differences and to their own differences, there's been exclusion. You can be included as long as you're like us. Oh, we all have the strange, sister or brother that's, kind of gone the weird way. Oh, you're not like us. It's going to be awkward when you show up at our table. That's exclusion. That's not what family is about. That's not what God's kingdom is about. Family is about inclusion. Doesn't matter how different you are. Doesn't matter what strange thoughts or ideas you have. It's about inclusion. That's what the walls were with Nehemiah, but they needed the walls. They needed the structure to be able to have that inclusion. So let me find my notes. So as Nehemiah was building his, I wanted to catch up a little bit with what we did the previous weeks. 2 weeks ago, Nick talked about rebuilding the gates. And the first gate that was rebuilt, does anybody remember what it was? The sheep, right? The lamb. What did that signify? Jesus. Jesus, which signifies our marriage with God, which is a direct picture of our marriage with each other. Or maybe I said that backwards. Maybe our marriage with each other. Our marriages reflect our marriage and union with Christ. Regardless, we looked at marriage as the foundation for family. Healthy marriages make healthy families. And we looked at love and respect and how they play a role in the relationships. And it was beautiful. The second gate that Nick talked about last week, which one was it? Fish. And what do the fish represent? Children, right? And discipleship. And how discipleship is critical in raising our kids. That's what raising kids is. It's discipleship. It's shepherding their hearts. It's and we looked at how to fight for the hearts of our kids. And we talked about that in our small groups. This week we're going to talk about the adversary that is constantly against us in our efforts to build the walls of our family. And Nehemiah, as he was building the walls, he had adversaries. I'm not going to say all their names because they're hard to pronounce, and there's a lot of them. But they were the people, the surrounding people groups and nations that were holding the Jewish people in captivity. So as far as they were concerned, the Jewish people were not a nation. The Jewish people were just an ethnic minority group that its only place is to be intertwined with their own nation. So they were put down. They were the low of society. So to see this ethnic group, this minority ethnic group that was in captivity, begin to build walls around their temple, made a statement to them that this minority group, this sub-minority group, is actually becoming a people and trying to build themselves into a nation. And they wanted nothing of it. Who are these people? So, their first... okay. We also have enemies of our own in building family. And this is where this message could take a really bad turn. And there's a lot of people and well-intended teachers out there that would take this in a very bad direction, and they would say, those liberals, they're ruining family. They could say things like, the homosexual agenda is ruining family. Divorce rates are ruining family. Abortion is ruining family. And we could turn this message into a whole 45-minute long political rant on different ways that the enemy is attacking us through legislation, and we could really make that the focus. But that's not what Nehemiah did when his enemies were attacking him. Nehemiah, should I read it first? I was going to have this all on PowerPoint, but okay. First of all, I want to just note, our enemies are not people. Our enemies are not political figures. Our enemies are not the Clintons. They're not anybody that we can put a name to. They're not our peers who put down the idea of getting marriage because they've had nothing but bad experience with marriage. That's not who our enemies are. Our enemies are the forces of evil, the invisible principalities that control the majority thought of this world for evil. Our enemy are the lies that are put forth from Satan himself to bring down, to capture and control the minds of people. People are not our enemies. We got to put that right out in the forefront of everything. So how did Nehemiah deal with his enemies? He didn't. That's it. He didn't. He could have gotten all uptight. Said, "Did you hear what they said? Did you hear what they're going to do?" He could have got all passionate. She said, "What?" No, you didn't. He could have gathered all the Jewish people together and said, they're saying this, they're doing that, they're doing that. And he could have gotten everybody all worked up and passionate about the flags that the enemies were holding up. And we need to plan our attack. He could have gotten them together. We need to plan our attack. We need to do our political, whatever. But he didn't. He ignored them. He said, we're going to keep our eyes fixed on the vision of building these walls. Because these walls are the community of families living in the abundant blessing of our God and Father who loves us and takes care of us. To Nehemiah, that's what those walls represented. So he brought the attention of, and he assembled everybody, but he said, we're going to ignore what they're saying, and we're going to press on to the vision that God has given us, because that's where life is. So we're going to look at some of the enemy's attacks and ways that the enemy attacked Nehemiah, and we're going to look at ways that the enemy attacks us in our efforts for families, for building our families. So we're going to read chapter 4, verse 2 and 3. Where are we? So all the enemies, they started using sarcasm and humor to try and discourage. They tried to get in the minds of the Jews through sarcasm. It says, what are those feeble Jews doing? Will they restore their wall? Will they offer sacrifices? You can hear the sarcasm. Will they offer sacrifices? Like sacrifices are going to make the wall come up? They can't do this. Will they finish in a day? Can they bring those stones back to life from those heaps of rubble, burned as they are? And the enemies who was by his side said, what are they building? If even a fox climbed up on it, he would break down their wall of stones. So, sarcasm. And you might think, oh, they're only words. We've all heard sticks and stones would break my bones, but, We're made in the image of God. When God speaks, things happen. When God speaks creation, the world comes into existence. When God speaks destruction, things fall down. We are made in the image of God. Our words have power. We've talked about it here. That's the power of the prophetic. We can either be a prophet of truth, speaking life and creating life, or it can be a false prophet speaking destruction. Both have power, both have effects. Sarcasm, I'm so glad you're here, Sally Ann and Frank. Sally Ann she does marriage counseling, like Nick said. Sarcasm in the role of marriages, yay or nay? Nay. Nothing good comes from it. Rudmer. That's good. It's bad. What sarcasm does is it takes what should be abnormal and it makes it normal. And we start to see that in culture. When you start to see culture start to shift and start to embrace things that culture should not embrace, you start seeing it first in our comedy. Look at the sitcoms of the 90s. You start to see like Everybody Loves Raymond. That was one that I used to like and watch a lot. And I thought it was funny. It was funny. You laugh at it. But you look at the dynamics of what's going on in that family, and it's dysfunction. And we laugh at it. You see Raymond, who's supposed to be the leader of his family, bringing in positive values, being intentional about bringing love and acceptance and warmth to his family. He's the goofball. He's constantly getting cut down by his wife, and he's the goofball. He's made a mockery of. And that was the roots of it. That was the seeds of it. And look at what that false prophet did to today's society. Now today's society, do our fathers respected as the leaders of their homes? No, they're mocked. It's what's happened in our culture. Humor and sarcasm and cynicism are powerful in the hands of the enemy, and they use them to bring us our focus on that and to normalize what should not be normal. So what did Nehemiah do in the midst of that? Let's look at verse 6. So we rebuilt the wall till all of it reached half its height, for the people worked with all their hearts. Talk about spiting the enemy, right? You guys can't build a wall. If even a fox jumps on that wall, it'll crumble. So we rebuilt the wall till all of it reached half its height, for the people worked with all their hearts. They didn't even hear. Say what you want. This is who we are. This is what we're doing. They had such a fixed vision on it. They worked at it with all of their hearts. This morning, that's the title of the message. I want to think about and consider, in this whole week as we meet with our small groups, what does it mean to work at our families with all of our hearts? So I wanted to just consider a few tangible ideas for what that looks like, to work at our families with all our hearts. And there's a lot. I'm not going to name them all, but I encourage you guys to talk about this and wrestle with this. And in fact, even when you grapple with this question seriously and you talk about it with your spouses and in community with other families, that in and of itself is going to strengthen your families. Just talking about that as a question. What does it look like? Because when you talk about it, your heart gets invested in it. So the first one I want to talk about is we've got to draw a line. This is going to be practical. This is practical stuff right here. We've got to draw a line in how much our work consumes us. For me, especially owning a business, I don't have fixed hours. It's so easy to get completely consumed and wrapped up in my business. I could come home at 8 o'clock every night if I wanted to. I could work Saturdays. It'd be so easy to. We've got to draw a line. Our work serves our families. It's not the other way around. Our families don't serve our work. Our work serves our families. Our work is a means to an end. It's a provision that brings financial income in to allow our families to exist. That's necessary. But we've got to draw a line on how much it controls us. The second one we talked about in our small group last week a little bit is being present when we are present. You know what I mean by that? It's so easy for me. I get home from work, I'm tired. I engage Abigail because I love her and I want to spend time with her, but she's at the stage where she's a little bit more independent, so we're sitting on the couch playing, and all of a sudden she's on the other side of the room playing with her own thing. I was like, well, she's over there, I might as well, putz around, check my email, Facebook, whatever. And before I know it, I get so wrapped up in this thing, I don't even know what Abigail's doing. I start feeling tap, tap, tap. And I'm like, oh, hold on. Tap, tap, tap. It's like, what am I doing? You can't get this time back. She's only going to be this tall so long. We can't get it back. I can't tell you how many parents I've talked to that are in their 60s. Their kids are grown and they say, I wish I was more in tune then. Young families, we can't get this time back. We got to be present when we're present. We also need to be intentional about making special memories And some of the times these will be planned. Sometimes they'll be routine. Sometimes they'll be spontaneous. But a couple ways that we do it is, growing up, we always had a family night. We always knew Monday nights is our family night. Nobody plans anything on Monday night. If there's a sports thing that comes up, well, guess what? You don't go. Family is most important above everything else. We were there. So, and we, as kids, I remember, I missed out on some sports things because of that. But that was a priority, and that's what's most important. Your kids' sports are not going to follow them their whole life. Family does. And what you make of it now is what it will be for their whole lives. Being intentional about dinner time. Nick talked a little bit about this last week. You build that core value for family in your kids when they're young. When they're teenagers, they're going to leave their friends at 5:30. I got to be home for dinner, because that's what we do. That's who we are as a family. We're making that priority special time, and they can always count on it. Daddy's always going to be here for dinner. Mommy's always going to be here for dinner. Everybody's always going to be here for dinner. That's being intentional about your time with your families. Making a priority events that are planned, like coming to the church family nights. That's being intentional. Okay? These other things are not so important. Family's most important, and being in relationship with other families is most important. So we're going to be a part of these family nights that we have here at Almond Branch. I like saying that, Almond Branch. That's good. We're going to be intentional about being a part of that, because that's what family is important to us. It's important to God. It's what facilitates life. There's a lot of other things that we could put in there. Discuss it in your small groups. Have a good time discussing it. I think even spontaneous. Yesterday, I did not have much of my message prepared. And I was planning on spending my whole Saturday to prepare it. Well, we got the storm, and our power went out, and it was getting warm, and the snow was melting, and I know how much Abigail loves to go out sleigh riding, and I know how much the other families in the church love to come sleigh riding. So I said, you know what? I got to practice what this message is about before we even prepare the message. We got to go sleigh riding. We got to do it. The snow ain't be gone tomorrow. We have the opportunity to make a memory that's going to stick with these kids for their whole lives. Get on the phone. Send the text messages out. Come on over. We're going sleigh riding and we're having pizza. We're going to make a memory. We got to be in tune with the opportunities and intentional to make memories when they come up. It's building family. The walls are coming up. So when the sarcasm, the cynicism didn't work from the enemies, the enemies of Nehemiah hit him with something else. And it's kind of funny, because when you look at other conflicts, conflicts, you see the trend happen. And when I was preparing this, it hit me. Kim Jong-un and Donald Trump. Do you remember, talk about sarcasm and cynicism? How did that play a role in that whole conflict? Rocket Man. That was hysterical. I mean, Kim Jong-un is coming out, and Donald Trump responds, calling him Rocket Man. I mean, that's it. That's sarcasm. He's fighting. That's an all-out war. He's fighting, tearing them down with sarcasm. And it worked. But after that didn't work, then what did it go to? What did Kim Jong-un start saying after that? So, we're going to bring the United States of America down to their knees. And you guys, we're going to reduce you to a pile of ashes. That's what he said. And Donald Trump was like, well, no, we're going to reduce you to a pile of ashes. The threats come. And what are the threats? They're an attempt to paralyze in fear. We sang that song this morning. I'm no longer a slave to fear. So we can't jump to that first because we got to focus on the attack, right? We got to look, sorry, not focus. We got to see what the attack is. So let's read it. Verse 7 and 8, and then 10 and 12. But when the enemies heard that the repairs of Jerusalem's walls had gone ahead and that the gaps were being closed, they were very angry. They all plotted together to come and fight against Jerusalem and stir up trouble against it. But we're not going to jump. Go to 10. Meanwhile, the people in Judah said, the strength of the laborers is giving out, and there is so much rubble that we cannot rebuild the wall. So the people are starting to get a little bit discouraged. The work seems overwhelming, and they have these threats coming against them now. All our enemies said, before they know it or see us, we will be right there among them, and will kill them and put an end to the work. Then the Jews who lived near them came and told us 10 times over, wherever you turn, they will attack us. Do you hear that? It was working. They were getting paralyzed in fear. They heard these rumors of the enemies, so much so that when they were supposed to be out there working with all of their hearts, it says 10 times over, Nehemiah is telling the story, 10 times over, they came to me and said, they're going to attack us, they're going to attack us. They were frantic. They were in fear. Fear had a hold on them and stopped them from building the wall. You might say, okay, well, that's all good and everything, but what are, we don't really, like, family fear, how does that go hand in hand? Let me tell you something, and I didn't really grapple with this until I was preparing this. Fear is real in building our families, whether you realize it or not. And I'll tell you how this plays out in my heart, in my marriage. So things get tough. I don't think they get tough just in my marriage. I think they probably get tough in all of our marriages at some point or another. You get in an argument, conflict, you're going through a season where you're just stressed and kind of at each other's throats a little bit. Have we all been there? I don't know. You all seem like you don't get there, but we do. What goes through my mind in the midst of an argument or a real difficult wall that I feel like we're hitting, a bad wall, not a good wall, a block, is what if this marriage fails? That's terrifying to me when I start thinking about the ramifications, the fallout of that. Because first, it's the shattering of dreams of growing old with the love of your life and living happily ever after. That's the first fear that comes over me. Second is I wouldn't be able to see Abigail every day. I can't imagine that, not growing up in the same house as my kids. That breaks my heart to even think about. The third is the finances. Everything that you've been saving up for retirement gets split in half, and then eventually you lose it all because you're looking at paying about $2,000 a month in alimony. You're going nowhere. Divorce is bankruptcy, financially. And the last fear that I could think of that is perhaps, well, I don't know, they're all bad, is the fear of being lonely your whole life. Fear is real. And all those fears are the antithesis of what life is all about and what dreams are made of. And it can paralyze us. Those fears are false prophecies that the enemy loves to sing to us and try to make our reality. Let me say that again. Those fears are the false prophecies that the enemy loves to sing to us and try to make our reality. Some of us are living the reality of those fears. And if that's you, be encouraged, because God is always restoring and rebuilding family. And he's going to put your arms around you and show you family like you've never seen before. And you also have a special role because you can be a voice encouraging people who are building their families. So what did Nehemiah do when fear was paralyzing his family, his people? I'm going to tell you, then we're going to read about it. He summoned the people to work together as one community to defend themselves against the enemy so the work can go on. He gathered everyone together. We need to do this in community. That's what he did. Let's read, we're going to read verse 16 through 18 and 21 and 23. From that day on, half of my men did the work, while the other half were equipped with spears, shields, bows, and armor. The officers posted themselves behind all the people of Judah who were building the wall. Those who carried materials did their work with one hand and held a weapon in the other. And each of the builders wore his sword at his side as he worked. But the man who sounded the trumpet... Oh, nope, we're not going to go there. That's for later. Wherever you hear... no, not there yet. So we continued the work with half the men holding spears from the first light of dawn till the stars came out. I love that picture. For the first light of dawn till the stars came out. These people, their whole hearts were in this. At that time, I also said to the people, have every man and his helper stay inside Jerusalem at night so they can serve us as guards by night and workmen by day. Neither I nor my brothers nor my men nor the guards with me took off our clothes. Each had his weapon, even when he went for water. This can only be done in community. Think about if they didn't do it in community. And Nehemiah said, screw them, I'm not afraid. I'm going to muster up, I'm going to pull up my bootstraps, I'm going to do this myself. And they went to work. Even if they were able to muster themselves up to be that committed to the work, they would have gotten pierced through the back by the enemies. They have to come together. It doesn't matter if you have it in you. I doubt any of them would have had it in them unless they came together as a community. The whole Band of Brothers themes. You know, there's something powerful that happens in the minds when we come together and we commit ourselves to doing this together. There's a sense of building each other up where we can go so much further, like distance runners who run together. They can go so much further than if one man was just running alone. But put that aside, one guy was working, building the wall, while the other guy stood by him with a spear. You mess with my brother, you mess with me. That's a powerful picture of how we build our families. Community is the key to the success of building our families. An isolated family is a weak family. There is great strength when we come together and raise our families together. Moms, you have a hard job. I don't know how you do it. All day long, you're not around an adult. Or dads, or stay-at-home dads. I don't want to be gender exclusive. Throughout the whole day, you're dialoguing with little people who are just learning to speak. Most of your words to them probably are gibberish. They'll all day. I don't know how Renee does it. I wish she was here to hear, but she is. She's here? Oh, she is here. Okay. And then even if you want to go out, I hear this. I hear this plea from my wife. Even as you want to go out to the store to get some bread, it's like you have to plan for a small vacation just to Pack the bags. See that? Renee's like, he does understand. He does get it. You have it hard. It's not easy. You can't do it alone because that discouragement, that fear comes in from the enemy and it paralyzes you. And it makes you feel like even your own husbands are against you. And that's not reality. It's not. You got to do this together, ladies. There's nothing more powerful when women get together regularly to pray over each other, to encourage each other, to remind each other of what the truth is, of what reality is. To share, there's something on that. There's something about that. It's powerful. Men, dads, it's so easy to get distracted. It's so easy for us to distract. There's so many distractions that can pull us away, pull our hearts away, where the enemy can capture our hearts, capture it with lies, bring us down, discourage us. There's something powerful when men get together regularly to pray over each other, to build each other up. In fact, when we do that, what's happening in the spiritual realm is one is working while the other is standing there with a spear, blowing lies off the backs. That's what's happening in the spiritual world when we're praying over each other and we're encouraging each other and building each other up, reminding each other of what the truth is. The truth really is the sword of the Spirit. It's everything. The enemy is the lies. When we do that to each other, we're piercing those lies, helping each other stay focused on what we're doing, building our families. Preach it. And something about building families and community, it's not just all about serious stuff. In fact, the serious stuff is usually like the smaller part of the time. You know, all the praying over each other, encouraging each other in truth, yeah, that's awesome. That intimate time of fellowship is good, but most of it should be fun. And we need to be intentional in doing that in community. When there's a snowstorm, come on, let's bring all your kids over. We're going to have a fun day. It should be fun. We should be hanging out together. We should be building relationships around food and having fun, watching the kids have fun. That's what building families and relationship is. There's one more element to this that I want to target. That's in this passage. It's verse 18 through 20. And each of the builders wore his sword by his side as he worked, but the man who sounded the trumpet stayed with me. This is Nehemiah speaking. Then I said to the nobles, the officials, and the rest of the people, the work is extensive and spread out, and we are widely separated from each other along the wall. Wherever you hear the sound of the trumpet, join us there. Our God will fight for us. And I sat and thought, I knew the trumpet had significance, but I was asking the Lord, where does it fit? What does the trumpet mean? And he showed me, we have trumpet blowers in this church. Aline Shot, you are a trumpet blower. You send out your prayer email. That's amazing. What you're doing is you're blowing the trumpet to the whole church family, and you're saying, there's a need over here. We all need to come around this person, these people in our community, and pray over them, and if there's a need, we need to meet that need for them. We need to answer the trumpet call. We need to show up. My wife is a trumpet blower. She keeps a pulse on the needs of families who need meals. And she blows the trumpet. And she says, we've got Thursday They need a meal Thursday. Who can do that? All right, great. You do the meal Thursday. All right, I'll do Wednesday. Somebody else do Tuesday. We got to meet the need of this person, blowing the trumpet. That's what it means. We come together as families to the call of need, and we serve, and we meet the needs of each other. Have you guys experienced this? Have you experienced your family serving other families? There's something powerful that happens. There's something mystical that happens. I say mystical because God shows up. Even people who don't know Jesus experience this in serving one another. They just don't know it's the Holy Spirit, but it is. Something powerful that happens when we show up to serve and meet a need of another person and family. And when we do that as families, we both get built up. Both families get built up in powerful ways. Those walls are being reinforced and strengthened and built up. It would be a mighty fortress around our families. Gives us the ability to have gates that open wide for people to come in. That's what it's about. So there are very real forces in this world that are set strongly against our families. They attack us through discouragement, sarcasm, cynicism. They attack us through instilling fear. But the power of the enemy will appear distant and feeble as we keep our eyes on the vision of family that God has given us. When we work at our families wholeheartedly, in community, building up one another in truth, and serving one another in our needs, our families will grow strong. They will be a light on a hill in a dark world that everyone will see and point to and say, oh wow, it is possible. Family is possible. Family is possible. I got to speak that again into existence. Family is possible. Healthy family is possible. The family that God designed it to be is possible. The Holy Spirit, Jesus, and the Father in unity is possible to be manifested among us and our families, through our families. And the voices that were cynical, coming from the people who are most hurt, who have been most disillusioned because of their broken experiences with family, those voices are going to turn from sarcasm to cries for help. And at that moment, our families are going to be places of refuge. Where our gates will be open wide. And we will join God in his restoration power to bring in healing to people who are broken and to broken families.